Sorry, I blame Greta Thunberg. The impact of this knee-jerk reaction, we must go electric, and save the planet. There's no danger of a dog coming out and swerving and running into a house and killing someone, having a cup of tea, watching Strictly Come Dancing. Now, this video is all about frustration. The frustration suffered by car enthusiasts. We'll be talking about speed limits. Are they correct? Should they be higher? Should they be lower? When are they appropriate? Is there a better system to employ out there to make it fairer for those who get penalised doing not above the speed limit in areas where there's no safety issues whatsoever? We talk about car tax, and is that getting a bit silly? Where's the money go? Then there's other costs associated with motoring, which are going up and up and up. And then last but not least, the impact of this knee-jerk reaction. We must go electric, and save the planet, without thinking about it in a deeper way. And what are the real costs of moving to that electrified system that people have discussed but are not taking that seriously? So if that's the kind of thing you want to think about and have a debate, then this is the video for you. Stick all your comments down below. Love to hear your thoughts. Right, speed limits. Now, this is a very sensitive subject. Clearly, it's going to be polarising. You're going to have people at one end who don't want any speed limits whatsoever. Laissez-faire, total freedom. And then at the other end, you have people who have perhaps lost loved ones via an accident that was proven to be caused by speed. Because remember, not all accidents are speed related. So there has to be some sort of balance, and I completely recognise that. I'm actually not an advocate of removing speed limits on motorways, for example. I don't think that we've got the driver education on how to use lanes properly that the Germans have, for example, on their autobahns, which are de-restricted in some areas. I don't think we're capable of driving well enough to make that viable. I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of drivers in this country. We've all seen them when we go out and about, and the motorways are quite terrifying places to be. And you self-regulate yourself. You can't just go along 120 because you know someone in the middle lane is not going to see you. So, kind of self-government is kind of the way forward. Now, where I sit is that I believe that this black and white blanket speed limits that covers every condition is completely antiquated. Yes, partly it's to do on the performance and capabilities of the modern car. Modern braking systems are amazing. The road holding of cars is fantastic. The connection between what the person feels on the road and what's happening with the car is a lot better. There's more technology to aid a driver to maintain a safer amount of progress on the road, albeit above what we now call the speed limits. Now, currently, you can actually be penalised with a fine and penalty points for going 1 mile an hour above the speed limit, whether that's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 or 70 miles an hour. Generally speaking, it's kind of accepted in the eyes of some fairness that you can do perhaps 7 to 10% above the speed limit and not get penalty points or a fine or be taken to court. However, I know two people personally, both related to each other. One's a close friend of mine and his mother, have both been done at 33 miles an hour 30 zone. And this when there was no pedestrians, it wasn't at school time, it was on a single carriageway, tree lined, good visibility, no danger whatsoever. That, I think, is an example of total unfairness. If it was outside of school, then I'd advocate 20 miles an hour, absolutely standard. And if you go 21, you should be in risk of getting a fine. So there has to be some balance. It's about time and place. It's about conditions. On the other scale of that, 70 miles an hour, a limit which came in the 60s, would you believe? And that was due to the oil crisis and trying to maintain the consumption of fuel at better levels. That's quite ridiculous. I mean, there's cars that now can, not that you should, get to 70 miles an hour in about 2.5 to 3 seconds. and capable of braking back to zero in less than that. So making a mockery of braking distances according to the highway code. So at the upper end of that, a phenomenally capable supercar could go well into the hundreds, 130, 150, in an ideal world when there's no other cars about, and be safe. It's all relatively speaking. So yeah, penalise 21 at 20, outside of school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Don't penalise someone going 120 on a motorway at 2 o'clock in the morning on the M1 where there's no other cars about. Somewhere there's a balance, there's a sliding scale. So if it's a 40 zone and you're doing 47, it shouldn't be an instant 3 points and a fine. It needs to look at the evidence, which you do in any other court, any other situation in life. You look at evidence against it to find the reasonableness of the prosecution. So in this case, you'd look at weather conditions, lighting, the amount of pedestrians about, the amount of cars about, the amount of cyclists about, and basically the hidden dangers that could be on that stretch of road at that particular moment in time. So if there's junctions coming up, yes, your road should be slower. Sorry, your speed should be slower. Now, I get that it's difficult to manage that, and that is a problem in itself, but there should be some leniency involved. Whoever deals with the fining and looking at the camera evidence that police get on their handhelds or on GATSO cameras or average speed cameras, there should be a decision process made with some check boxing. Say, right, does it fulfil that? Does it fulfil that? Does it fulfil that? If so, right, we fine them. If it's somewhere in the middle where actually a fine isn't appropriate, then let's send a warning letter out. And it could be that, look, you're going too fast, you really should be more of your surroundings, sort of standard stuff. And then there's 2 ways to go. They just get that warning, and it could tot up. If they have 3 warnings and a third one, then at that point it could move to a mandatory and statutory 3 points and £100 fine, for example, as there currently is if you break the speed limit and get caught. The other option is, instead of a fine and penalty points at that point, if there are 3 misdemeanours on the road, they just go to a driver awareness course. Now, I think they should be shuffling more people to driver awareness courses, and it probably should be something we all do every 5 years, to be honest. And there's some atrocious driving out there, and it's not just the ones who got caught that should go on it. I think everybody should be aware of the problems. And I do get that 1 mile an hour difference at 32 or 33 hitting a child's limbs if they come in front of the car can make the difference of being paralysed or badly busted to getting away with a scrape. But we're not talking about that because we're talking about the general education of drivers. So basically, yes, speed kills, but a lot of other things kill. Miseducation, bad driving techniques, the lack of training out there above and beyond the normal test driving that people do. I've seen some people who have passed the test driving. Others would be driving. I wonder how on earth they passed it. And I'm very dubious. I'm not saying that backhanders could be involved, but sometimes you look at it, you just shake your head and think, how on earth did they manage to pass a driving test? So I think, with that time of practice or having a lucky day, you can pass a test and then go on and be in charge of this 2-ton killing machine. So, there's horses for courses. Everybody's different. Which is why you can't have a blanket removal of speed limits on motorways. Because yes, some people in their supercars, 30 years driving experience, been on track days, etc., they could be very, very confident of being in charge of that vehicle. And if something happened in front of them, they would manage to stop, brake, swerve, whatever, take evasive action quickly and effectively. However, a new driver who's quite scared, lack of confidence on the road, is going to have a complete panic situation. I mean, if a car comes past 100 miles an hour, they could have a panic. But never mind if they go too fast, their own comfort experience level, which can cause an accident itself. So you can't blanket ban it. Of course, this is quite timely. There's been talk about a blanket 20 mile in Wales. I mean, what? Jesus Christ. This is completely against what I've been talking about a bit earlier, whereby this is appropriate driving speeds for certain situations. We can't just make it a blanket 20. You can't make it a blanket anything. Really, you've got to look at individual circumstances. I mean, urban driving is completely different to country driving. They both have their dangers, of course. You can't just say, okay, 60 mile speed limit in country roads out there and you just can go along at 60, because there's still blind bends, the tractor could come out any moment behind a hedge, A car can be broken down around these bends because there's hedgerows too high to have visibility. So you've still got to drive sensibly. Luckily, there have been a record amount. Actually, would you believe it? More people have signed a petition against 20 miles an hour speed limit than any other petition ever created, which is quite incredible. It just shows a level of frustration probably with motorists, and it's just getting a bit silly. I mean, at a person's most cynical nature, you think speed cameras and mobile cameras are just there to catch people speeding to earn revenue for the government, and then wonder, where does that money actually go? Does it go back into driver education, which is probably the number one cause, or safety driving mechanisms like better road signage, etc.? I'm very sceptical. If they were ever going to trial time and place motoring limits, then they should try it on, let's say, the M6 toll road. It's always less travelled because people don't want to pay money. That's a simple reason. So it's an opportunity to see how something like that would go. So yes, you can have different speed limits, different time of days, but you can't black and white it. You can't say at 2 o'clock in the morning it's 120. You can't say at 11 o'clock at night it's 100. You can't say at 7 o'clock at night, due to a certain weight of vehicle, that it's 80 miles an hour. So I get this is very difficult. I haven't thought as heavily about this as perhaps one should do. I just know that there's an opportunity for the police, whoever prosecutes when they get the evidence, to look at it and think, now, let's give that person a warning. They're doing 110, but there's no one around. There's no danger of a kid being run over. There's no danger of a dog coming out and swerving and running into a house and killing someone, having a cup of tea, watching Strictly Come Dancing. So I think it just needs to have a bit of reasonableness about it. So what's your view about speed limits in general? Is it about time and place? Should it remain as it is? Should it get more blanket? Should it get more severe? Should they actually limits go down rather than up? You know, cars are dangerous things. No one's going to deny that. In the hands of the wrong person, they're a weapon of mass destruction. However, let's not take away the freedoms that we've got as human beings. You know, we enjoy the right to go and enjoy ourselves if it's relatively safe to do so. There's a lot worse problems in the world than finding drivers for going a little bit too fast on the off chance of one in X amount of hundreds of thousands that someone might get injured when there's no one about. While we're on it, I'll tell you something that really annoys me, is SUVs and vans and any tall wide vehicles with no rear window that you can see through as a normal driver on the right hand lane, the fast lane of a motorway or dual carriageway. You can't see anything. Now that in itself is dangerous. And you could argue that it's not the speed on these kind of roads that is the big problem. It's people being too close. So if you came back with a normal car in front of you, you can see a lot. You can make a judgment. And I'm always looking ahead, not just the car in front of me. You see that in your kind of inner, if there's another word for periphery, it's right in front of you. So you're actually focusing down the road where you're going to be in several seconds' time. If you're behind a van or a big SUV, you can't see anything, no matter how far you go back. You can't really see what's going on, like one or two cars in front of that van. So I think they should be banned from that lane, and only cars below 1.8 metres or 1.4 metres or whatever should be allowed in that lane. I think that is a big safety issue. I've often thought that. Right, 2 words. First word, 1 syllable, sounds like heart. Smart. Smart motorways. Oh, flip me now. Oh, again, another knee-jerk reaction. For what? What are the benefits of that against the negatives? I've even lost track of why they did them in the first place. I mean, to control the speed of cars in those sort of conditions, which are ever changing, I kind of get that bit. Good signage helps, but why take away that lane which everybody relies on for safety, huge safety, having that lane on the left where you know if you've got into trouble you can pull over and stop there in relative safety. People will still come in the back of you. But a smart motorway, suddenly it crosses out and there's people, you kind of move over, there's people still go down there. And now if you go past one or you come to the second one, you can get your 3 points, £100 fine. But still, there's people parked up on that left-hand side and people can go into the back of them. It just doesn't seem to work. It just seems that it's far more trouble than it's worth. I don't know, what are your thoughts on it? But smart motorways, good or bad? I know there's some sort of a feel that it might start to reverse these sort of things, but it hasn't happened yet. It might not happen. Who knows? Who knows what the next move of the government's going to be vis-a-vis smart motorways? The thing about smart motorways is that it kind of backs up a bit of what I was saying, that on the M6 toll road at 2 o'clock in the morning, it could say you can do it at 150. Or it's just got a de-restricted sign. So instead of the white circle with the black line, which was national speed limit, which was 60 on a dual carriageway, 60 on a single carriageway, 70 on a dual carriageway and a motorway, it could have some white circle with a green line across it, which means there is no limit. Do what you want. That would be fascinating. And then you could take that across into other things. Urban, round town, for example, outside schools, they should be those signs anyway, maximum 20. And perhaps they need to do something with the colouring to make it more obvious that it's absolutely critical you don't go above that speed. But in other situations, normal single roads, country roads, maybe there is a case for having smart signs which then change according to conditions and the volume of traffic, which they can easily monitor. So maybe there is a way there to kind of use that technology to make it more reasonable. Right, let's move on to car tax and rising costs. Now, motorists have to suffer a lot of costs and lots of rising costs. Maybe not exponential, but just going up and up and up each time. Now, the price of a new car goes up and up every year, of course, and that's got worse with recent inflation. The second-hand car market has gone up accordingly. The cost of an electric car might be 30 or 40% more than the petrol equivalent of that car. So, I mean, how's that going to get us into buying more electric cars? I mean, the word subsidy just doesn't even cut it. So, car tax. I bought a new car in February of this year. The car tax for the first year was £2,420. That's ridiculous. That's just an unfair tax. There shouldn't be a car tax at all. There shouldn't be a car tax. There shouldn't be a road tax. They get enough money from other ways, like penalising speeders. Right, and all the other taxes we pay in life. Why are they picking on us? Why are they doing this? So that's car tax. The first year one is absolutely ridiculous. There's just no justification for that. And then there's the car tax every other year, which could be somewhere between £0 up to several £100s, penalising people for their emissions. But this is where I fundamentally think it's all bollocks anyway. I think the world is on a downward spiral to Armageddon. I think it goes like this, a cycle every 100 million years, or whatever it is, ice age, hot age, and it kind of goes like that and goes like that, and we're coming up to that hot age. At that point, the earth will readjust, wipe out all us idiots on the earth, and then it will go down and down and down and down. Life will begin, it will carry on, it will thrive, it will prosper. Then it will get to the ice age again, where it all dies, the earth corrects itself, it comes up. I don't think there's anything we can do about it. It's just the way the world works. That's how it happens. So all these little things, I don't think it means anything whatsoever. I think it's a complete waste of time. Let's just enjoy the planet while it is and take other precautions, the other things that we can do to make life better down the line. Let's get the price of air conditioning down. Let's design better ways of creating forests so there's not further huge expansive fires. Anyway, I'm going a bit off target here. And then there's petrol prices. I haven't looked up myself, but I do know that the petrol price obviously is related to the price of oil, and it goes up and down accordingly. Then again, why should it? Why can't the government take a bit of a hit on it every time the price goes up? They're worried about people spending money and inflation. Well, don't put it up. Make the tax a bit lower to keep the petrol price lower. Absorb it. I mean, they're already making huge amounts of money on tax from the petrol. The cost of the tax to us is much more than the cost of the fuel. I mean, that's ridiculous. I know we've got to get money from somewhere to make things work, but let's not get into that argument, because we could spend all day thinking about how the government wastes money in the wrong places. So, the whole government and the whole country's got to get more efficient. We know that. All right, a big one. Green. The knee-jerk green reaction. Now, you've already known my thoughts on the state of the planet, and I think we can do nothing about it. That's not being defeatist or negative. I think it's just the way it is. And I think well before the climate's going to kick us in the butt, there's going to be a cataclysmic natural disaster or a comet anyway. So I think making these small little changes, knee-jerk reacting, is a complete waste of time. It's complete folly. I think politicians and other world leaders have got to be seen to be doing something to stop this getting worse. But I think it's a fait accompli. It's going to happen. It is happening. It's going to get worse. Let's come up with other solutions. So I blame Greta Thunberg. Actually, I think she's brilliant for the planet in driving some agendas and making us more aware of things, because every little bit does help if everybody does it. However, stop picking on drivers. Jesus. We don't want electric cars. Not all of us. And then you think, why don't they just stop the creation of all new cars? Just jumping on this green bandwagon. Oh, let's buy electric vehicles. Well, no. So green. First thing to think of is, right, okay, put more filters inside cars. Now, in a way that makes sense, because I don't want to be breathing in that rubbish that you get, especially in urban environments. And I kind of get the point of having extra charges if you're taking a car which chucks out a load of crap into a city centre. That actually does make sense. Where they're going a bit wrong is the level of penalisation and what they're giving us as alternatives for us to get into work in urban environments. That's where it's going wrong. So again, it's unfair. And they're pushing out the ULEZ, they're going to push out car congestion. I mean, every city's going to have it, and that's going to get wider and wider in every city. It'll only be in urban countryside, it will only be in the countryside. Well, actually, you won't be paying any sort of extra tax on top of the 17 taxes you're already bloody paying. But the biggest green movement is electrification of vehicles. Now, I think it's a fantastic idea for working vehicles to be electrified. So we talk about the buses, talk about trains, we talk about bringing back the old milk floats. Anybody, delivery shop, Amazon, Tesco's, those sort of things who have to do it for a living, have to get about, and there's loads of them, make them all electric. Fantastic. That's about getting to A to B. It's about delivering goods and services or delivering people to certain destinations. Then you've got the middle ground of people who just want the freedom of travelling, and then you've got that people like myself and yourself watching this video, enthusiasts who actually drive for fun. Would you believe it? Actually fun. Electric vehicles. Oh, God. Another complete spaz up. They've gone completely mad in driving us to electric vehicles. Even the government's thinking about moving that backwards from 2030 to 2035. And that might change again. There's been this massive reaction by car manufacturers to put a huge amount of money, which all comes back on us, by the way, into building electric cars and getting them all designed, getting them all through testing, etc., etc., etc. Now, I think there is a place for some people to use electric cars. Not necessarily because, my views on the planet, if it's going to save the planet, but in urban environments, maybe cars should be electric so we've got cleaner air to breathe. But also, I think it gives people that choice where they don't want to pay rising fuel costs. They just want to pay electricity costs, which is another point. Electricity costs are going to go through the roof. Imagine there's a flipping point and most people got electric cars. When you plug them in, the national grid's going to collapse. We haven't got the infrastructure to deal with electric cars en masse. From that point of view, pure usage of electricity. And then you think, well, where are all these electric cars going to be charged? There isn't enough space on forecourts and service centres and motorway drop-off points and outside people's houses, lamp posts. There isn't enough places where you can get anywhere near the micro percentage of charging enough cars that are going to be able to sustain those cars that are driving about. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the other thing about electric cars is they're hugely expensive. 30-40% more than the equivalent petrol car. The batteries add about a third of the weight, which makes them less efficient, actually, and just going to wear the battery down more. And then what happens to all these batteries? I'll put it to you. What is going to happen to all these car batteries? So if most of the world, certainly the first and second worlds, not the third world, have all these electric vehicles, have all these huge amounts of batteries until we get to the small batteries like that power in a car, which will happen one day if we make it that long. What happens to all these batteries? They're clearly not green. They're not biodegradable. They cost a fortune to make. We're raping the earth of its natural resources to actually get the materials to build these batteries. And then let's say you've got 1 million to, no, more than that, Christ. Oh my God. It could be like 500 million batteries every year in the future being disposed of, having to be disposed of. How do you dispose of these batteries? Some of these batteries are the size of a double bed, or they take up space in the car about the size of a double bed. You could be talking about, by the year 2080 or year 2100, batteries could fill Australia. I mean, no one's thought of this. It's quite ridiculous on top of all the other problems with this way of thinking, going into electric vehicles. Let's all go gung-ho, don't worry about the consequences. Wouldn't surprise me if we get to about 2035, 2040, electric cars become obsolete because actually it's flipped all around. People suddenly realise this isn't going to happen. There's no way it can happen. We can never get infrastructure into place to run electric vehicles en masse. It's just stupid. The carbon footprint of building electric cars far outweighs that of keeping old cars. Why don't we just stop making new cars, full stop? That carbon footprint would be amazing. That way that would diminish that. There's old cars out there going back to 1970 which can still run for like 250,000 miles. And it's good, it'll bring jobs, more jobs in mechanics, there'll be more MOTs, government still gets its money, it still gets its car tax, but you're making use of cars that have already been built. Their carbon footprint is actually miles lower than building an all-new car in the first place, or building new massive factories and super factories to build electric cars and batteries in the first place to sustain the demand. I mean, right now electric cars just are not viable for many people because the range is still hideous. And then you've got the other problem with electric vehicles and infrastructure, which is the number of chargers around. There just isn't enough chargers to really jump up another level in the take-up of electric vehicles. So you're in your car, you've got a route planned out, it's 400 miles. And you know you can stop here and here for a charge or a boost of that charge to kind of bring it up to a level. Now you get there and there's a massive queue. And you've got to take time out of your day, it could be half an hour, 45 minutes or worse, before you can get onto a charger. And then what happens if 5 out of the 7 chargers that are there, and that's being generous with the amount of chargers you'll find, are actually not working? And don't forget, as it gets more and more, there's more and more problems. There's more and more people who have to go around trying to fix them. So it's just not going to happen. So you're going to have real problems. You could build as much range into new cars as possible. Another 10, 15 years, the range might double. But the problems associated with the sheer amount of electric chargers around is going to be exponential. Because of the people using them more, they're going to bust more. The other complete load of bullshit is people buying electric cars thinking it's going to save them money. Well, first of all, as we've already discussed, they're 20 to 40% more expensive than a like-for-like. If you kept an old petrol car, you could be saving yourself a bloody fortune, even if petrol prices go up a lot more. And then look at the price of electricity. All the electric vehicle owners are going to get hammered by rising electrical costs. And that's going to get even worse as more and more people start charging their cars up at home. But I see electricity prices going up faster than fuel prices. So how's that going to benefit electric car drivers? I don't get electric car owners feeling smug because they have less other costs to pay, like at the moment zero car tax. But I'm telling you right now, it's an absolute no-brainer, 100% that at some point, when there's a tipping point, if the government's losing revenue in car tax and tax on petrol, which is huge, because the take-up electric cars takes more of a hold, the first thing they'll do is start taxing electric car owners because they've got to get revenue from somewhere. And they'll just come up with another excuse. Oh, cars are dangerous. More people being run over because they can't hear the bloody car coming. So we've got to tax you. We've got to try and lessen the numbers of electric cars being bought. Oh, can you see where this is going? Absolute joke. So you'll suddenly be getting £100 to £200 car tax electric cars that are Nissan Leaf size, who have got minimal range, less impact, go slower. And then it'll be the same as we've got now, several £100 for performance electric vehicles like the Taycan Turbo S, for example, e-tron GT, Tesla Plaid. You know, these are seriously fast cars. They're going to be taxed to the hilt. And that's going to go up at the same rate as we can expect normal car tax to go up on petrol cars. In fact, you could argue also that car tax on petrol cars is going to go down because there's less petrol cars being used. So they're less harmful to the planet. And the other thing that's going to happen, and I believe it has happened to a couple of cars, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's now going to be charges on how you use your electric cars. Now think of electric vehicles. Because it's electric, the big brother technology is already inside it. So they already know or be capable of knowing exactly what you've done from point A to point B and work out if you need a fine and a 3-point penalty. They can work out exactly how you've used your car, how you've braked, how you've accelerated, the lateral G-forces on acceleration and turning around bends. They can tell so much, but more importantly, they can tell if you've used your car lights above and beyond, if you've used your air conditioning, if you've used your electric seats, if you've moved your electric seats, if you've used the light in your glove box. And you'll suddenly find that people are going to be taxed on the amount of electricity they're using within their car, the amount they're using their batteries for, because it all goes back into them reaping the national grid of electricity to recharge those batteries. And believe me, that charge is going to come as well. So suddenly, you could be here in 15 years' time, and you'll be hearing a massive amount of car owners, electric vehicle car owners, moaning about cars and taxes and extra costs. And they'll suddenly realise, oh, actually, maybe it wasn't the way to go forward. I should have kept my 1.6L Ford Fiesta from 1993, and I'll be a lot better off. The other main cost of electric vehicle ownership is the second-hand values. Now, certain electric vehicle cars seem to do all right. Typically the small cars, which happens with petrol as well, because everybody wants them. But the more high performance and bigger SUVs that require a huge amount of battery power, and therefore huge expensive battery replacement, their prices could tumble. And so the depreciation cost of buying a new electric car could be hideous. It could be a lot worse than people buying electric. And that's going to stop people. It's going to be a barrier of entry to those willing to buy an electric car in the first place. And then they'll go into the second-hand market where the cars are cheaper. But then they'll run into the problem of battery efficiency, batteries running out, and suddenly on their 25 grand second-hand electric vehicle purchase when it was 50 grand new, they've got to come up with 25 grand battery replacement. I mean, you know, and where are they going to find that money? And what makes me laugh is, I think the hybrids were a brilliant idea. So in an urban environment, when you're going around 20 miles an hour, it's electric. And then as soon as you go out to the country or go a bit faster, the engine comes in. I mean, was that not the perfect solution anyway? We just all moved to hybrid cars. I haven't got a problem with that. At the end of the day, I still believe in that electric vehicles are great for central city environments and possibly even other urban environments as you get around about urban buildings and shops and schools, etc., and domestic housing. It's just when you get out and about, you want the oomph of the engine to come in. So I just think the government's gone too far, or the world's gone too far, in pushing the electric vehicle agenda. I think the hybrids were an excellent idea and it should have been carried on. And if you carry that on the next 10 or 15 years, all the money went into hybrid technology, we'll have vehicles that can go up to 40 miles an hour without having to use the electric engine. And the drain on electricity when they plug in their hybrid would be a lot less than trying to fully replenish a whole battery system that powers the whole car. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on car tax? What are your thoughts on electrification of vehicles? What are your thoughts on speed limits and the rising costs of car ownership? Have they got a right to take the joy and fun of motoring away from us? Where's it all going to end? Where does all this money go? Why are they picking on drivers? I've had enough. How about you? Aid out.